I have no doubt that we will have some people joining us as we continue. I want to, again, thank you all very much for taking part of your afternoon and joining us. This is our third town hall today. We've had a high school town hall this morning, and we had an elementary town hall at 11. And so we are finishing our third town hall today with Beverly Vista Middle School. And I want to, again, thank you all very much for being here. I'm Dr. Breggy, your superintendent, and I'm joined by Mr. Allen and several staff members today to share some information with you and then also get your input and your questions as well. I've noticed some people in our room are joining us for a third time. So as I reflect, I'm hoping that it's not because we weren't clear, that you are looking for any additional information for middle school. And I thank you very much, all of you, for joining us 2 and 3 times. I think that that's indicative of this information. It is complicated. Reopening schools is much more complicated than people think. And so what we're going to do today is kind of catch everybody up, just look at where were we? How did we get to where we are today? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the future. And so I'm going to share my screen with you. And while I'm doing that, I'm also joined by 2 board members that I can see off the top of my head. Ms. Wells and Dr. Stern, thank you so much for joining us as well. There we go. I hope everyone can see my screen. I want to start off today by just bringing us back a little bit, not all the way a year ago to the pandemic. We know that that was a really difficult time for everybody involved. I want to just go ahead and start back to this school year. And I think that I join a lot of people in stating that here we are today, the beginning of February, and I'm just absolutely amazed. We continue to ask more from our students, more from our parents, more from our staff. And I'm so grateful that we're all together on this journey because it's been a difficult one. And I know that we are asking staff and our parents to juggle more than we've ever asked before. In fact, if you look past the last 100 years in education, there's never been a time where there's been so much change. And so I just want to thank you again for this journey with us, working with us, and communicating with us as we continue to work through this pandemic towards a solution and to our cases coming down so that we can reopen schools safely. So going back to August, we were introduced to a new metric system from the state. And this was a system that our state told our school leaders that this is a system that we want you to understand. We want you to support it. We want you to educate your community on this system because this is the system that will create movement to when we reopen schools. And so back in August, when we started our school year, we bought in to this system because this was the measure that we were going to use towards improvement. And so you've seen it before. We've shared it with you many times. I'm looking at the left-hand chart, the widespread tier, the substantial tier is the red tier. We also had an orange tier, a yellow tier. But for today's purposes, really want to focus on the widespread and the substantial tier. Because when this system came out and we started to communicate this to you via videos, PTA meetings, board meeting presentations, we shared with you that the reopening, the definition of when a safe reopening is when we're in the red tier. And that's been pretty clear from the state and the county for many months since August. And so that's the tool, that's the measure, that's what we've used to communicate. In fact, we were even told as superintendents that this system is for the whole state. So please use this when you start working with your labor partners as well, when you're developing your MOUs for reopening schools. And so we did just exactly that. So I wanted you to see this because it's been something that's been part of our communication since August. And so just want to share that with you and just kind of update you. I want to also share with you a diagram we've shared before that we have developed with our labor partners on the return to school. And so we negotiated based on the prior framework from our state on when to return to school. Now the difference here is, and I know this is a middle school meeting, so I won't spend a lot of time on our TK through 2 waiver that we applied for, but I want you to look at on the left-hand side, the purple area, which is still the widespread area. Since we did get the TK through 2 waiver, we did negotiate with our teachers and said, even though the state's plan says 7 or below, that to look at this opportunity to bring our youngest learners back in. So our specialized services for special education, small group cohorts, and also for our TK through 2 waiver, we negotiated and we actually went to 10 for an adjusted case rate. So we kind of pushed into that purple widespread area. So I just want to share that with you. This is what we've negotiated. How that looks with the state, and I'm putting them right next to each other on purpose so that you can see that it's almost identical to what the state has done. The left-hand side shows that schools, when you're in the red tier, and again, the way that it has been is that you're in the purple tier. When you get to 7, you have to remain there for 14 days. And then you go into the red tier, but you have to be in the red tier for 14 days. That's where we've come up with the 28 that we've shared with you before. And so that's been the standard since August. And that's been the standard we've been told to use. So when we worked with our unions, we also, on the right-hand side, you can see that it's almost matches that exactly, that we would be opening up our middle and high schools in the red tier. Actually, if you look at the TK through 2 waiver, more 3 through 12, that we would open when we're in the red tier, which is 7 or below. So the newest plan came out from Governor Newsom, and we've been navigating, as we have since the very beginning, that the state plan from California comes out, and the state plan is the opportunity for us to be able to review that information from the state. But not only that, not just the information from the state, but also from the county. And so the governor's new plan is called Safer Schools for All. And that came without warning. That came with new expectations, new ideas, new definitions of what is safe. And that's the most important thing that I want you to think about is what changed in this plan was, and I just want to go back to this slide right here on the left. What changed is what we told parents and staff was what was safe to reopen schools was when we're in the red tier. The new plan from Governor Newsom says that the safe reopening has changed and that TK through 6 is at the adjusted case rate when we get to less than 25. And so one thing I want to point out, since this is relevant to middle school, is that the TK through 6 isn't appropriate for our school district. In some school districts, 6th grade still is a self-contained class on the elementary campus in many school districts. As you know, in our school district, our middle school is 6 through 8. And why that makes a difference is because of the definition of what a cohort is. So a cohort is 12 students or less. Now that definition has not changed. It has not changed since even before August, that it's still 12 or less in a cohort. So the reason 6th grade in the governor's plan doesn't work for us is because our students don't remain in a self-contained classroom. They change classes. And so that would create intermingling of our cohorts, which then increases the rate, the likelihood of transmission. And so that hasn't changed. So even as of today, when we navigate what the state says and the county has not updated the definition of cohort, which is why, if you've been tuning into some of the board meetings and in some of the communication we've sent out, is that the state and the county have remained silent on what middle school and high school delivery of instruction looks like when we reopen. And even still to this day, they're still silent on what that looks like, how that's going to be done. So while that's frustrating, there's some good news in some of this information that I want to share with you, but I wanted you to know that this is where we're at right now with the governor's plan and the county. What's important to understand, and this is where I know that there's a lot of different thoughts about how this works, and I want to be really clear about what the hierarchy is. So the state of California has the responsibility to come up with statewide orders. And so they do that. And then all the jurisdictions have to follow suit. Right underneath the state are each of the counties. I think there's 58 counties. Each county then has to rely on what the state has said, or they have to establish more restrictive protocols and practices. And so, as you know, we live in a county that has been more restrictive than the state from the very beginning of the pandemic. And so it's important for you to know and to realize that we have to navigate what comes out at the state, but also then at the county, because the information from the county, if it's more restrictive, which it always has been, that's what we have to abide by. So the public health orders that come out, that's where we look, because you have the state, but then you have the county that's been more restrictive. We have to look at the more restrictive. Just to give you an example, just so that you understand how this works as far as hierarchy, I didn't put it on here, but if you think of just the city of Beverly Hills, they would fall underneath the county of Los Angeles. So they're required to follow what the state says, what the county says if it's more restrictive, and then the city of Beverly Hills can actually be more restrictive than the county of Los Angeles. And to give you an example, when the city of Beverly Hills was one of the first to require that everyone will wear a mask, that wasn't the case in LA County at the time. So you can see that, again, more restrictive, Beverly Hills was, you have to wear a mask. So the more restrictive you go down the hierarchy, that's what you have to follow. So with the new proposal from Governor Newsom that was provided in January, is now we're waiting for the county of Los Angeles to weigh in. And as I said before, they've always been more restrictive. Now the public health order, as you know, changes all the time. If not weekly, sometimes twice a week, we would have information revisions from the county about the protocols. And so we're constantly navigating what they are, how does that impact us, how does it impact students, how does this impact staff? And we haven't received an update since December 28th. So I'm being very transparent with you that this is a situation where we almost didn't hold the town halls today because we're still waiting for the information from the county. And the state plan's been out for a while, and we're waiting for the county to weigh in on if they're going to be more restrictive or are they going to follow what the state has decided. I can tell you that there's a lot of pushback on Governor Newsom's plan, which is what may be the delay, but we are still waiting. We had heard that last Friday, that we would have some updated information from the county, but we're still waiting on that information. So again, in a very transparent way, I just want you to know, now this has to do with the TK through 2 waiver, but I just think it's important to share with you that it's an ongoing navigation, it's an ongoing battle to find the correct information. Now, the state and the county don't always agree, and they don't always communicate. Many times the state will put out a plan like they did without consulting the county. And then the county scrambles to look at the plan and then come up with their own order. So as the TK2 waiver, just as an example, is the state said it's invalid. We are going to go to Governor Newsom's plan. Any TK2 waiver that's out there, it's invalid and void. We're just going to go with the governor's plan. Last Thursday, in a superintendent's meeting, we found out that the county, LA County Department of Public Health, didn't agree with what the state said. And they said, no, we want to uphold that. If you were approved for a TK2 waiver, we want to make sure that that's something that you can reopen with. So that created a lot of confusion. A lot of people had communicated out different information. And I just want you to realize that this is just an example. Now, I got this email then on Friday, just this last Friday at 5 o'clock. This is just indicative of what happens all the time. And this isn't to throw anybody under the bus. This is to share with you how complicated, how the changes are every day, and the impact is different. Sometimes there's very little impact. Sometimes there's a big impact. And so this is just an example from this email about what the state says, what the county says, and then how we're going to fix it. And so the resolution at the end of the day, when the county and the state don't agree, is let's develop another process. Let's develop another committee. And that's what's happening. So the TK2 waiver now has to go through an additional process to see if it's still valid or not. And so this is just an example. I understand that it's middle school. I just want you to know from a real, authentic example of what it's like to navigate every day with the information that comes in. And again, it changes all the time. The impact is different, but this is pretty typical of what we do every day. So what's next is we're waiting for the LA County Department of Public Health, that order. Again, it hasn't been updated since December 28th. We're waiting for that information so that we can then prepare our communication and see what impact that has. I do want to point out that I did send out a communication last week that some people were not supportive of. And so I put out some information stating that our school sites, we were offering some of our school sites to be vaccination sites. And I want to share with you that I work with a really progressive team, a very progressive board of education, that we don't sit back and admire the problem. We really want to be part of the solution. And so what I like about this team is coming together and looking to see what can we do, because we all have a responsibility to mitigate the transmission and to slow the COVID-19 virus. And so vaccinations, that's just one way. It's an effective way, but it's just one way. And so if our school sites are closed to in-person learning right now, why wouldn't we offer this opportunity to have a vaccination site if we can start putting the shots in the arms of our educators, our teachers, our staff, our custodians that are cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting? Why wouldn't we do that? In no way was this announcement a way to block in-person learning. And I know that it had a response from some people that thought that that's exactly what I was trying to do. And that's just nothing further from the truth. We are looking to see how we can be part of the solution here. As you know, this is a big problem in our state, is the supply of the vaccine. We are still in tier 1A, which includes those residents and people that are over 65, people that are in residential living situations, and our healthcare workers. We're still not finished with that tier. Educators and people that work in schools is in tier 1B, but the supply of the vaccine is creating an issue for all of us. So the offer's been made. If we could use our high school, or if we could, people could stay in cars, and we're trying to do what we can. And again, it's one way. We've done masks. We've put out communication. We have our schools that are set up to be safe, but it's just another way. And in no way is this blocking anything that we're trying to do other than be part of the solution. We all know that as conditions improve, the sooner our schools will open. And if we can be part of that in some way, we feel a responsibility to be able to offer that. We continue to work with our labor partners. As information comes in from the governor, and now we're waiting still from the county, we are working with our labor partners, and they have been great at the table. They have been very positive at the table. We are further ahead, and it's something Mr. Allen will discuss and share with you in just a moment. We are further ahead about where we're going than most school districts are today. And so a lot of good work has occurred. Some good news. If you look at our tier assessment, and if you haven't seen this before, we are assessed as a county every Tuesday with our adjusted case rate, which is the rate that we're using to open our schools. And so as you can see here, this just came out maybe an hour and a half ago, that we are at 38.7 adjusted case rate. So this is going in the direction that we want it to. And just for specifics, 2 weeks ago today, we were at 75.3. Last week, we were at 48.2. That's 20, it dropped 27 cases in 1 week. And now we've dropped an additional approximately 10. So in just 2 weeks, we've dropped 36.6 cases. We expected that the case rate would begin to drop as quickly as it went up. And we're starting to see that trend. We're excited about that trend. And we're working with these numbers and this data because we're excited about the numbers that are coming down. So I wanted to share that with you because I think that's really good news in the future. Before Mr. Allen takes over and just kind of walks you through the schedule, I do want to share with you that while we're waiting for the LA County Department of Health to provide an update, we expect to get an update very soon that changes the definition of a cohort. Right now, as I mentioned, it's 12 students, and it's 12 students that stay together. And so that makes elementary school a lot easier to schedule than our middle school and our high school. So we've already thought ahead, and some of the work that Mr. Allen's going to show you with that has been put together with a variety of staff members' input is really something that is ahead of where some other school districts are at. So we're very excited about that information, but I do want to make it really clear that the governor's plan, as of right now, and it's just important for everyone to understand this, the governor's plan as of now is that it's a TK through 6, but 6th grade is off the table for us because it's middle school. There's changing of classes. So in our cases, I'm just going to say TK 5. So the governor's plan, the TK through 5 Governor Newsom plan, is to reopen schools at 25 as the adjusted case rate or less. It doesn't say anything about middle school and high school. And we know that that's next. With the cases that are falling like they are, we know that that's next. And we are ahead of the game here with having a schedule and having this information. So again, there's a lot of positive work that's happening behind the scenes. And again, just from your situation and the educational role that you have all taken on, I cannot thank you enough. Soon, we are going to be able to take that away from you a bit and start to reopen our schools and slowly transition our students back. But we are still held to a cohort. Now that may change from 12 to 16. The state is at 16, the county's at 12. That will change, but that also puts a barrier for us when it comes to scheduling. Social distancing is going to be around for a long time. So that creates a little bit of an obstacle for us, but I think that we've handled it in the right way, and I will let Mr. Allen kind of walk you through our schedule.
Thank you, Dr. Breggy. First of all, I'd like to say a huge thank you to our district leadership, who, when we entered into our school year, really had a far-sighted vision of coming back, eventually coming back. So when we created our bell schedule that we are currently operating under, the vision was that we would actually be able to come back without a lot of disruption. It would be a very similar bell schedule. And so our students, the transition would be much easier for both our students and our staff and our parents, quite frankly. So when you look at this schedule that you see in front of you, there are two cohorts. One is cohort A, that is purple, represented by purple. The other cohort B. And it looks very much like the bell schedule that we are currently operating under. You can see that Monday is periods 1 through 4. We are currently operating under that very same bell schedule. Tuesday is periods 5 through 7 with a late start. And we obviously, again, are currently operating into that same schedule. And then Thursday and Friday, the very same. Wednesday, we have all 7 of our classes represented exactly like we have right now. Now, here's what's a little bit different about this, and here's what makes it a hybrid schedule coming back, is that on Mondays and Tuesdays, you can see cohort A would be in school. They would be physically at Beverly Vista Middle School in their classrooms. And at the exact same time that, let's say, period 1, that class is sitting here, the cohort A is sitting in the class period 1, those same students that are in cohort B would be actually at home watching, and they would be digitally attending that same class. So they're getting the exact same instruction at the exact same time, but half of the class is at school and half of the class is at home. And that's on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, everyone is home, all students are home, and we're using that day to really go through the school, deep clean the school, and to provide some continuity where we can get all of the kids so that the classes aren't separated, but we can get all the kids in one space together, and that would be in a virtual classroom. And then on Thursday and Friday, we would flip that. And on Thursday and Friday, the blue cohort, cohort B, would come back. They would be at Beverly Vista, and cohort A would then be home attending the classes digitally. The big change in this schedule, and it's not even that big of a change, the adjustment, I want to say the tweak of this schedule compared to what we are currently operating under, is that the classes are cut 5 minutes. So right now we're running 85-minute classes, and we have these classes are 5 minutes shorter, and that 5 minutes is added to the lunch period. So it's a full hour lunch period. And the reason why we would have that full hour lunch period is we would be cleaning these classrooms. The classrooms would be deep cleaned during that lunch period by our crews. And then the other thing it allows us to do is really space the kids out at lunch so that we don't have the long lines, the long lunch lines, and the kids have more time to be able to get their food and find a spot to sit down and eat. I will tell you that we have been preparing for the day that the kids come back. If you could walk through our school right now, we have all of the signage up. Our restrooms are prepared. We have hand sanitizing stations throughout the school. Mr. Stern has really taken the lead on this transition for us, and so he's been great about our hallways are one-way hallways. They actually have like dividing lines down the middle of the hallway, so kids know that on this side you're going this way and this side you're going this way. Staircases are one direction, so there's the upstairs and the downstairs. For anybody that ever attended schools in New York, you know what I'm talking about. You have the stairs that go up and those that come down. So we've really taken the time to begin preparing. All of the classrooms have sterilization signs on the doors, so that as that classroom has been sterilized, the custodians put the sign on the door so that everyone knows that that classroom is sterilized and ready to go for the next group. My goodness, we've done a lot across the campus in preparation for having our students back. And we wait with bated breath and hooked for permission from the county and the state to begin pursuing bringing those kids back onto campus and learning in our environment. But I want to say that I have a huge amount of pride for where our students and our staff have come thus far. We made lemonade. I'm just going to say we have made lemonade. If you saw the instrumental music concert last Thursday night, it was absolutely phenomenal. And I am proud of the resilience that both our students and our staff have shown thus far. They're fantastic, and it's been amazing for me to watch them work. So, Dr. Briggy?
Yes, and Mr. Allen was talking about just again waiting for some additional information from LA County. What we are anticipating next is that the county will be changing the definition of what a cohort is, which right now is 12. The state is at 16. Again, being in practice, the state having a protocol and then being more restrictive at the county level. The county level knows that we can't run our middle school and high school in a single cohort. Now, of course, they thought that in the beginning when they told superintendents, oh, just keep the kids there and have the teachers rotate. Well, these are, again, medical experts and people that don't understand how the school system is organized and how it's run and some of the challenges we have. So these are some of the meetings that we have with them on an ongoing basis. So we expect that, perhaps this is the delay in LA County providing an update, but as the numbers are falling quickly, we know that the cohort number has to change. And not only that, but also the ability to be able to move to different classrooms. A middle school and high school, as you can tell, cannot run. But I think what we've done here is the idea is, and the county has said that they just can't get their arms around, at least at this point, kids that are in classes and intermingling and changing classes 7 times. It's too high of a risk. And so I think what we've done with the schedule worked perfectly, and we did have the vision early on that this is going to bode well for an easier transition. So,
Reggie, I would like to point that out as well, is that in a regular schedule that we would have been running last year, we would have had 6 different times during the day when the kids would be filling the halls. And this schedule actually gives us half of the kids on campus and only 3 times during the day that those half of the students would be in the hallways. And then we've really tried to structure it so that they're all going the same direction. And so there's not a lot of face-to-face traffic with kids, and we've really cut that literally in half.
Thank you for that. So we do want to move on to another portion of our town hall, which is really an important part for us and for all of you. I just want to remind everybody that this meeting is recorded. So if you, for some reason or another, do not feel comfortable being on a recorded session, then please feel free to turn your camera off. Just a couple of parameters that we have so that we can structure our session in a way that's beneficial to everyone that's has joined us. Our moderator today will be Rebecca Starkins, who is our Director of Public Relations, and she has that tough task of orchestrating all of that going on in the chat room. We do ask that you mute your microphone unless you've been asked to unmute it, and you're being asked to please put your question directly into the chat box. We do ask, though, that no anonymous questions. Please ensure that you have a name so that we can call upon you. Many cases in the past, we've tried to do a follow-up with a parent regarding a question, and we weren't able to locate them because we weren't aware of who they were. They had a different name. So please use your correct name. If you have a follow-up question, please put that into the chat as well. And the last thing I want to say is just if you have a specific question about your child in particular, that we do ask that you just reach out to Mr. Allen or anyone on his staff to answer a specific question so that that can be answered in a more private manner than this big virtual room that we have. Please know that the information that was shared today is the most updated information that we have. And as I mentioned, things are changing all the time. And we are waiting for the LA County information, which we expect any minute. So the information being shared today is based on what we know right now. And I'll hand it over to Ms. Starkins.
Hey everybody, our first question today comes from Bahar Yektafar. Would you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? This question is in relation to state testing, and Mr. Allen, if you could please answer it, that would be great. Go ahead, Bahar.
Hi everyone, thank you. So my question was, and I had this question before, so I'm gonna kind of include a little bit the elementary as well. I understand that state testing is now scheduled for 3rd through 8th and also 11th graders. I'm a little concerned because I know that the children are evaluated on the results of the state testing for whether or not they're going to be identified as GATE students for elementary and for the honors program for middle school, and maybe even honors and AP in the high school. So my concern is that the state test that has been established was probably established a year or two ago, and with the parameters of full-time school. Even though the district has been super diligent in making sure that the level of education that our students are receiving is pretty high, and I commend you all for that because it's wonderful, I still am concerned that it's still not to the level that it should be for state testing. And I'm afraid that those students who should be in honors and in GATE may not get there because their state test might be low. How would you guys address that?
So I do want, thank you so much, Bahar, for your question. You know, that is why it is so critical that we utilize multiple measures and not a single measurement to determine whether a student is allowed to access those classes, those honors and GATE classes and things like that. We use teacher recommendation. We use multiple measures to determine that placement. I also want to say that we are well aware that our test results may not actually look exactly like that we might have looked had we been on site. And then the last thing is, do you know that right now we actually we're planning on testing. We're moving forward with that. It will be a scaled back testing. Do you know that one portion of the test will be actually scaled back? Having said that, there is a possibility that the federal government might move forward and go, because we have a new administration in, that they might actually move forward and say, hey, listen, we're going to put this off for another year. So we're really we're planning for it, but we're also kind of know that could change. And but I do want to say that all of the students across the country take these tests, and I feel extraordinarily confident that our students will perform well above how other students are performing, because of the commitment of the people I'm looking at right here in this screen, the commitment of our staff, the resilience of our students, what you all as a parent community and as a district have done to really support kids. And I'm just going to say it, make lemonade out of this. We've actually, as a community, as a team, all of us have done an excellent job of kind of holding those kids up with the best that we were able to do. So I do feel confident that our kids are going to look great comparatively.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Jackie Kruger, and it's in relation to cohorting and class size and structure. Jackie, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. And Mr. Allen, I will say actually he's joined by all of his assistant principals who are amazing. So feel free, if you feel that there's someone more appropriate to answer a question, feel free to redirect things as they come up. Go ahead.
That's good to know. Yeah, thank you.
Hi guys, super nice to talk to you. And I talked to Dr. Breggy earlier today on another one of these, so it's good talking to you all again. I was wondering about two things. Is it possible to restructure the classes to make them in cohorts in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, just to give them more class access? And if not for this semester, are we considering doing it for the fall in case we have this problem going on, to give us more classroom time? And how are we going to handle all of this with our class sizes being larger than 24, like to split it up into 12 and 12? So how are we doing this for the middle school?
I think it's important to note that that the state is going to have to change the cohort size. And Dr. Breggy alluded to that earlier, that we are really we're waiting for that word to come down from on high. But I'm going to put somebody on the spot right now. Mr. Waters, I'm going to put you on the spot because he is our scheduling guru. And he's going to give you just a feel for like how difficult that would be in a middle school schedule to kind of to put those cohorts together. It seems like it'd be so quick and easy, but Mr. Waters, go ahead.
You would think someone who uses Zoom every day would have figured out that unmute, but I swear it's like kryptonite to me. It gets me every time. First of all, happy afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well and staying safe. Get vaccinated if you're up to it. If not, be safe. So this is what it looks like. If you were to take our, let's just say 900 kids and divide them in half, that does not guarantee that those 450 kids aren't going to congregate and be in a classroom with less than 12 people. So for those of you guys who've ever played with a master schedule, imagine Sudoku on crack, boiling in a hot pot of water, 500 feet underneath the ocean surface, and that's the kind of pressure it is putting that together. We will do everything we can to make it work, but just getting kids into a 32-person class can be challenging. I used to have hair before I started scheduling, and here we are. So Jackie, I don't have an absolute answer for you right now, other than to say that we have been thinking about this for months and months, and conversations have been ongoing. And we're gonna do everything we can to get those kids back in once we get the okay to do so.
And I can add something as well that I think is really important, that, again, I want to just promote some of the things that we've done so well, that we can't assume that other school districts are doing what we're doing. But one thing that we knew in advance, we knew that there would be a philosophy of everyone is out of school and then small groups coming back, which is why that's one of the reasons why we created the ILC, because the ILC has hundreds of students in it. And so that is going to take off that top section of kids so that we have a number that we can work with. So if we move to the state, which is what we anticipate is going to happen, whether it's 15, 16, that there are very few classes that have more than 32, if you divide those two in half. However, those that are even close to that, even 30, is so many of our students have elected to take the ILC that's taking off the pressure. And going back to that schedule, I just want you to not to alarm you, but what kept us up at night, many nights, as we worked collaboratively with our teachers, is that when we looked at that schedule where you have your two cohorts and you have kind of that split week, and what a beautiful thing that is. Even though I know that a lot of people look at that and think, gosh, I would want so much more. I want you to think about if we didn't have the ILC. If we did not offer the ILC, we would have to go to 3 cohorts. And I want you to think about what a nightmare that would be. If you are in cohort A and you are on Monday, Tuesday, right now it's every Monday, Tuesday. If we had 3 cohorts, you would actually you'd have to change. Like the 3rd cohort would be the following Monday, Tuesday. So cohort A wouldn't come back until Thursday, Friday. And so you're actually going a whole week without. So we knew way back in August when we started to meet with our teachers, what can we do? How could let's offer an ILC program, which is super expensive. We have to hire additional staff, but we knew that would, in the end of the day, that would help us when we started to go back. And it's proven to really help. So I don't do it often, but it's the administration at BVMS in high school that have been so instrumental in our visionary progress going forward, that when we reopen and when that definition of cohort, we're in a really good place to welcome students back in the smoothest transition that I could ever imagine.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question comes from Annie Jeng. It's in relation to COVID variant cases and COVID surges. Dr. Bragi, this is probably the best question for you to answer. Annie, would you please go ahead and unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. I just wanted to know, I know that you do have a plan, but I'd like to hear more about what your plan is when and if there's an increase or surge of cases, especially due to the COVID variants that we're hearing about.
Thank you, Annie, for that question. So, that's one of the things that we balance when we look at reopening. And again, not to, kind of you unveil what happens behind the curtain. Part of the reason what for our district that's been, kind of a worrisome thing is that we have a high number of COVID-19 cases within our staff, which is reflective of the high number of cases in LA County. So that makes sense. And I'm going to answer your question in a second, but I just want to step back to let you know kind of the impact. We haven't had a 14-day period in the last 6 months where we haven't had more than 3 cases of COVID-19 at a particular school. If we would have reopened our elementary schools, we would have closed them twice. And 3 cases closes a school. And not only is that considered an outbreak, but in the order, the LA County Department of Health order is if you have 25% of your schools are closed because of an outbreak, you have to close the whole district. We have 4 operating campuses. So 1 school that would have closed, and this is twice, we would have had to close the entire district, which really would have interrupted that continuity of the delivery of instruction that we have, that our teachers have done such an amazing job. So we don't take it lightly. And so the variants and the information that's coming in, the meetings and conferences that I attend, is that we have to make sure that anything that we can do to help stop the spread, slow the spread, that's our responsibility. So that's where the vaccinations come in, as far as, having a convenient place for educators and for our community. It's also that we're looking at looking forward into reopening our schools just with our custodians, and we want to make sure that we're when we do our contact tracing, that we're doing more than just reporting data. We're trying to find out, and our staff has been very open about sharing information, so that if there is information that's coming in that's an outbreak, that we can find out more about it, because as the virus continues, we continue to find out more about what's happening. Through testing, that's part of the governor's plan, is to have regular testing. We already have that in place for our staff. We've gone through a trial with our staff to go through the COVID testing. And so we've done that. We have an organization that's going to help with that. We're struggling a bit with the governor's expectation for student testing. And so we're working with the state to find out more details about how to make that happen. The problem with that is that many insurance companies, most insurance companies, they do not cover asymptomatic people being tested. Well, that's like 99.9% of the people that are being tested. So I think that with our health screening that we have in place, with the testing that we have in place, with hopefully getting vaccinations into as many people as possibly can be, that we're going to slowly bring down that spread. Now, if there's going to be a surge, the way that this instrument works that I was sharing with you before, it's movement in either direction. We are so thrilled that we've seen 36 cases drop in 2 weeks. If there is a surge from a variant, we're going to see that start going up. And so we will, of course, be monitoring that very closely. And we work very closely with the LA Department of Public Health. And so, with that type of information, and that information is being shared with school districts if that variant is present. And so if that happens, that's something that we take very seriously. The last thing I want to say about that is important for everyone in the room is that it's not just COVID-19 positive cases for our staff. We had a situation just recently where we had one of our custodians who is an integral part of reopening our schools, is the cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting our spaces, our workspaces, classroom spaces. And so with somebody that had a positive case for COVID-19, through our contact tracing and through our compliance process that we have in place, it was determined that there were 9 other people that were in close proximity to this person who has a positive test. Those people have to go home for 10 days. So at one point we had 10 people out. We had administrators that were cleaning rooms and helping out, because that's what we do, because you have to help out when in an emergency, and we did. But those are the things that we do have to prepare for. So what you brought up, Annie, is something that is always present and foremost in our thinking is to be aggressive about if something's going to change and surges are going to go up. And we are doing the best we can to stay on top of the data when that happens so that we can react appropriately.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Monica Sullivan. It's in relation to ensuring there is equity for kids who are learning at home versus at school. Mr. Allen, if you could please answer this, that would be great. Monica, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Thank you. And yes, I was also in the previous meeting, the elementary. So hello again, Mr. Brady. And thank you all at the middle school. You're doing a fantastic job this year. I couldn't be happier within, the situation that we are. So thank you for everything that you do. So my question is, I work from home, and so I have experienced what it is when your colleagues are in person at a meeting and you as a person that is sitting at home are trying to participate, are trying to ask questions. And what happens is that the people that are in person often forget the people that are online. So, I can see this dynamic happening in the classroom where the kids that are in person, the teacher is going to be focusing on them, and the kids that are online might be forgotten. So, or not on purpose, obviously, it's just the way it is. Sure. So what are your thoughts to avoid that from happening, and maybe helping teachers, maybe with an assistant that is monitoring the chat or something that could help the teachers engage the kids that are at home as much as the kids that are in the classroom?
As we move more and more toward this direction, we are going to have to take a really good hard look at that very issue to ensure that we are, first of all, that's a possibility of providing ancillary staff that could actually monitor students and while the teacher is in class. These are things that we would have to take a look at. Another thing is training and professional development. I want to remind everyone that a year ago, right now, 1 year ago, right now, as we were walking into the possibility of closing our schools down and going to home learning, we had a significant number of teachers in our school who didn't know how to operate Google Classroom, who Zoom was something that cars do in a racetrack, who knew that it was an actual computer program, that at a breakout room, who knew what a breakout room was. And so what happened was we launched into robust professional development and really worked hard to bring our staff and our students up to speed so that they were actually able to meet the needs of those kids. And I have full confidence, seeing what our staff has accomplished in the 1 year that we've had, that we would actually do the exact same thing. There's going to be some professional development that would absolutely need to happen. I think we are going to need to do exactly what you suggested and look at some of those alternative, possibly extra staffing as well. But really looking at all of the ways that we do this. And then, just to be honest, once we launch in, we tweak it as we go. We watch how it's working. And week by week by week, we make those improvements as we see the need. Because I honestly, that's what we've done this time, is we've really had to keep our finger on the pulse of how we're doing and our successes. and making sure that what we are doing to train our teachers is in real time to what they're experiencing on the ground. So I appreciate that question, because that's definitely something we're going to need to take a look at. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Eva Orpelli. It's in relation to a third cohort. And I know, Dr. Brady, this has been discussed both at our high school and elementary levels today. So if you wouldn't mind answering this, please. Eva, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hey there, everybody. Thank you for this. I skipped the high school one because I thought one meeting a day should be enough for me, but this does apply to the high school as well. Considering if we can come back to hybrid mode this semester, and we're talking about cohort A and B, why not have a cohort C that allows a choice for kids to stay home virtually the whole week? That would lessen the number of kids on campus and less disruption to those kids who got accustomed to this schedule, staying at home, doing things virtually already, and kind of like it. So
that's a great question, Eva. Thank you so much for asking it. So, there's a balance here. And I, from being in the classroom myself as a math teacher, and just even having meetings like this, being kind of tethered right here, if I've got students that are all out here, that's, we're not wizards. And so it makes it really difficult to engage with students through this mean and also, kids that are out here. So the balance that Mr. Allen was talking about, and kind of that blend, it's more of a blended learning environment, is that we're going to have to place some structure into where students are working on something while we have to release the teacher, if students are in class, from always being behind this camera. Because what's missing is that opportunity for our students to have the type of experiences where there's hands-on learning and manipulatives and labs and teachers meeting and having conferences with students. And so we have to, and this is why this is so difficult, and this is why there isn't a day that goes by where I'm just not so grateful for the staff that we have. That this is our challenge, is to come up, what does that blended environment look like? But we know that we can't survive in a situation where you have a teacher that's doing the same lesson here in front of you with the students that are in front of you in class and also in the camera. There has to be a more substantial experience for our students that are in class. And those are the teaching practices that we're experts in, is having students in class. Where the professional development, where the biggest change in our practice has been, is for our teachers that are using every inch of their classroom space, and their students are engaged, teachers engaged. The biggest change to that environment, which is amazing at BVMS, is going from that experience where every student gets a piece of you, is to come back now and be in front of the camera. And so it's kind of, it's counterproductive to what we've been taught as teachers. And so we've made that change. But when students come back, we have to be able to provide them with a better experience, a different experience, and a more hands-on experience. So what Mr. Allen talked about was exactly right. What is that blend? How do I handle cohort A? Is there a system where I'm going to give the lesson as the teacher, and provide that lesson to my students via Zoom and also in class? But then is there an experience where, that what's happening here with cohort A is that I'm going to be with them, and cohort B that's at home is doing another type of assignment. And then when it flips, it's the same thing, that those students, when they come in cohort B, they actually have the teacher and they're physically with the teacher. So we're going to have to put together those structures and supports for our students and be really clear about what this is going to look like. But I do know that it's not as easy as just saying, like, we're going to continue to teach the way that we are right now. Our students that are coming in need to be an active part of that teacher's lesson.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Tomoka Black, and it's a great question about recess and lunch and how that would work. Mr. Allen, you might want to delegate to Ms. McRae or maybe Mr. Stern, whoever you think might be best. But Tomoka, please go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So I wonder what's the restriction would be on the kids when they're back in school ground, like before school, lunch, recess. My son missed the interaction with his friends, so it's not going to be the same. They're not allowed to eat together, or they're not allowed to hang out, before school, after school. Could you explain that portion? Thank you.
Sure. You know what? Actually, Mr. Stern has been very instrumental in getting us prepared for coming back with kids on the campus. So, Mr. Stern, I'm putting you on the spot, but can you go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the plans that we've started to put in place?
Absolutely. It's a great question that you ask, because I know everybody misses their friends, and I can't tell you how much we talk about how much we miss seeing the kids. I can't wait to start talking to them and giving them a hard time about their dress coding them and telling them to put their cell phone away. Let me tell you. But we know that kids are going to want to be around each other and want to see each other. And yes, we definitely are going to be still very COVID protective and making sure that the kids are safe in the environment we're here. As Mr. Allen noted earlier, we have really dialed it into the school to make sure that as they're coming on campus in the morning, we're able to check their temperatures per the requirements, and that when they're walking through the halls, we're maintaining social distance, we're keeping them separated as appropriate. And yet we also know that the kids still need to have that social interaction. And so we have separated lunch tables so that kids can sit at lunch and talk to each other and not have to yell, "Hey, how's it going over there?" But actually be able to speak to each other within a reasonable distance. We're still going to be obviously, expecting masks to be worn and to be safe and make sure that everybody's following the correct protocols, but also we are going to have eyes out everywhere to make sure that we can have kids interacting with each other properly. There will be restrictions, of course, in place. We do need to make sure that we don't have kids, mustering up together to show each other something on the cell phone. And, we're going to have a lot of detailed conversations with the kids to make sure they understand those expectations when they come back.
Unfortunately, as Mr. Stern was saying, that the expectations for reopening are not unlike many public places. If you are going out to the grocery store and to other places, I know that just this last Saturday, I was walking my dog, and there's a middle school student that loves to share like what he's doing online with me, and so last Saturday, he had some friends that were over, which, I'm not going to judge, not judging, not saying names, but I was talking to about 6 middle school students, but they all had masks on. They all were separate. I didn't have to police them. I didn't have to. So we need to give our students and your children some credit too, because they've been part of a culture now for about a year to know. And when you go back to reopening schools, it's going to look different. It's going to feel different. But fortunately, we're not asking our students to do anything that they wouldn't be asked to do, outside of their house anyway. And I was just so impressed. I didn't have to ask them. They all stood apart from each other. I mean, it was just a very respectful, and, we need to remember to, give some credit where credit's due.
I'm also going to piggyback that Mr. Stern, one of the things that was so great, that he actually came up with the idea of X's, like these big plexiglass X's that we put on the tables, and that we're looking at bolting down on the tables so that 4 kids can sit at a table because they're looking right straight through plexiglass and able to still have their conversations while they're at lunch. And yet they're in their own little cubicle. So things like that. I also think that we realize that when those kids come back, there's going to be a whole new appreciation a whole new attitude. Like the kids are going to love and appreciate their school in a very different way because they have missed it for so long. And the teachers are going to all but want to hug the kids because they too have missed the kids so very much. I think there's going to be a real different dynamic that we've never really experienced before. That I think it's going to be cool. And we're going to make sure that we like are explicit and deliberate in recognizing that dynamic and really trying to prolong it so that we really capitalize on that kind of honeymoon, if you will, when we all come back.
Great, thank you. Our next question comes from, oh, sorry, Ms. McCrae.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to say we've had a couple of trial runs, like with our picture taking day and our PSAT, and the kids were fabulous. I mean, parents, I can't tell you enough. The kids were, it was teary seeing them. Everything we asked them to do, they did beautifully, elegantly, with such class. And I'll just say from the heart, for me, I can't wait to see them. And I think they're just going to be just fine. I think they're just going to roll with this beautifully. So that's been our experience so far with just those little pockets of time when we've been able to see them.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great addition. Okay, our next question sadly has a very, very short answer. So Dr. Brady, I'm going to have you break the hard news. It comes from Marnie Present. Can you please go ahead and unmute your microphone? It's in relation to VAPA. And if the order has been updated to reflect what we have with sports for VAPA.
Well, actually, it wasn't actually, hi, you guys. It wasn't actually about the order because I know and I do communicate with you guys about that. It was more when we do go back, has there been discussion, because you guys plan ahead so well, you're incredible, you know I tell you that all the time, about some sort of outside rehearsals for our visual and performing arts or our STEM classes on top of their cohorts. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they have to stay after school to rehearse or giving them that extra opportunity. Yay, we're allowed back. And we're going to give you a chance to also do XYZ because, okay, you understand. Thank you, guys.
No, totally, Marnie. And I appreciate the question and this opportunity. So, we haven't had the opportunity, even though like Ms. McCrae was talking about, we've had these opportunities for these, kind of flybys. But, this would be, when students are back for in-person learning, that this is obviously, this will be part of the entire program. So this will be after school as well. And so we have every anticipation that, what happens when we start to welcome people back in school will be throughout school as well. So there hasn't been any indication at all that they're going to separate and not do it. Once students are on campus, from morning till when they leave at the end of the day, even if it's an after school program, all signs are pointing to that, to be ready for that and to anticipate that happening.
Okay, so our next question is a great question. It comes from Linda Carolet. It's in relation to the adjusted case rate. And if we could have some clarification, because obviously with elementary, they're saying 25, with middle and high, they're saying 7. But Linda, please go ahead and unmute your microphone and represent your question in the way that you intended. Maybe Dr. Breggy, this is a good one for you.
Hi, Dr. Breggy and everyone. So I'm a little, oh, sorry. Sorry, one sec, guys. I'm a little confused just on where we're at with the adjusted case rate and when we come back. I know I was on the earlier chat for the high school, and we don't know what it's going to be for high school and middle school. But you said earlier, you mentioned 25%. Is that TK through second grade, or is that TK through 5? Because that seems high to me in terms of an adjusted case rate when we seem to have been at somewhere between 7 and 10.
So, boy, Linda, I'm right with you. It is high. And so that's in the beginning of the presentation when I was talking about the state plan has always been from the beginning is 7 or less to get into the red tier to reopen schools. And so while that's changed a little bit with the TK2 waiver, the governor's plan that was just released was TK through 6, even though, again, we're not, I want to bop him in the head for saying 6. And so, but it's TK through 5 that, that the governor's plan is 25 or less for an adjusted case rate for reopening our schools. However, that's getting a lot of pushback. And so while we do want to welcome our youngest learners back first, it is a problem when, we're asking, can you share with us, how did you arrive at 25? How can we, you're changing the definition of what a return is to school safely in the red tier, because we are more than 3 times into the purple tier. We are deep purple, and so it's okay if that's what it is. That's great, but can you help us with understanding how that was done, so we can share that with our parents and our staff? And so to this date, nothing, no reply, no data, and so that would be really helpful. But so right now, and this is this is kind of where we're at, is now that's just TK through 5, and that's getting a lot of pushback. If you are just looking at our 6 through 12, so our middle school and high school, if again, this is as of today, the measure for opening our schools is still at 7 or below when you're in the red tier. So I want to make that really clear. So we're super excited that cases are coming down, but that 25 that the governor, threw out there is not applicable to middle school or high school. So the standard right now, that measure for safely reopening middle schools and high schools, is 7 or below when you're in the red tier.
Fantastic. Our next question comes from Romy Azevedo. The first half of the question, Mr. Allen, just to step out for 1 second. So let's jump to the athletics question, because Mr. Ellis is right with us. Romy, please go ahead and unmute your microphone. And Mr. Ellis, this is for you.
I just put this in there so I can hear Mr. Ellis speak, because I saw him and I was like, I want to hear him. I miss him so much. Mr. Ellis and everyone, I'm so happy to see all of you. I miss you. Can't wait to hug all of you and get onto campus and take pictures of real kids doing stuff instead of being little squares.
Absolutely.
My question is, I know that we looked at the schedule during the day. Can you give us any light on how sports will be conducted next year, given these metrics that we're seeing? Any insight on that at all, please, for middle school kids, athletic program, and where would it be taking place?
I'm the eternal optimist when it comes to this stuff. In my dreams would be that we are back to normal come September. My plan right now is I'm working on with the BHEF setting up the summer camps, the summer athletic camps for the middle school kids and the high school kids. So I'm planning that those things will be a go. I'm hoping beyond hope that we can do that. Kids need to get out and play. And then I'm hoping we can get back to what we had a year ago. We had such a great start last year with all those kids playing football and volleyball and basketball, and we were rolling into the spring, and we really had the program going. And I think Mr. Allen and the rest of his admin team, I think, can attest to the fact that I think it really helped the school spirit. We were going to add cheerleading this year to that group, and hopefully next year that's coming back with that as well, that as we expand, that's what I'm hoping for. So I'm in the process now, and Dr. Brady and I have been talking about it. I have a man that wants to come in and do a virtual conditioning class 2 days a week in the afternoon, so kids can get online, and he'll put them through athletic type of movement skills and that kind of stuff, just to get the kids up and moving around. And hopefully, if the world opens up, we can maybe bring those kids back on campus later toward the end of the year and do something live. But that's my dream, is to get it back to where we were, because I think it was a big component of that, of the middle school program and the reorganization and the reconfiguration that we did. So that's my dream, and I'm hoping beyond hope. So.
And also, I just want to add to that. And hi, Romy. what we're doing kind of behind the scenes is a lot of anticipation. Like, so Mr. Ellis and I will meet and say, okay, what happens if this happens? Or if we're at this adjusted, what can we do here? And where can we do this? Like, we have like a whiteboard of just, I mean, the notes that we, like the options that we have, we are never going to stop short of trying to be as creative as we can when we can. And what we're doing behind the scenes that you don't get to see, a lot of what our teachers are doing, and our office staff that is just doing remarkable things remotely. Like, there's magic that's happening. And so we're ready. So as soon as that curveball comes and there's a change, we're going to react in a way that's going to continue to produce more opportunities for students.
I just want to see those fields being used, like, when I think about the outdoor spaces and, even the way the school's been designed with the atrium. And so I was just hoping that we can, really reflect. I'm so glad. And I know you're all being so creative and trying to figure out how, it's just that at what point, the way that we're tiering up, the entries back, I was wondering how athletics is going to tier up in that same way. So thank you for asking.
We're working very hard with that, and the fact that the LA County Department of Public Health has not updated their youth sports orders since October 22nd. So we're waiting for some point in time for them to come down and say, okay, you can at least expand your cohort groups to 16, or bring another coach out, or use 2 balls and those kind of things. But we've been waiting. And Dr. Breggy was saying earlier about something's coming down. Well, I'm waiting for that to come down too, or they say, okay, your kids can do more of this and more of that. And then, at the high school level, there are 5 different factors in terms of we have to deal with in terms of whether we can get kids back on the field. Is it, what tier are we in? What sport can it be in that tier? What season of sport? And it goes on and on and on. It's so confusing. So yeah, so I got a plan. So I just need somebody at a higher pay grade than me from the county to say, hey, let's roll, and we'll roll.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Bahar Yektafar in relation to Dr. Breggy. This might be a good one for you. How we're doing cohorting, obviously, addressed, but Bahar, go ahead.
Thank you so much. So my question was, for the families that have more than one student in the different schools in the district, I know that being on the other 2 calls, they're very similar. So I'm assuming that you all have worked together to kind of make it that way. Would you guys please take into consideration putting those families together, for example, having them on Monday, Tuesday all together, or the other 2 days together, so that all of those children can be out together? Do you follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And I want to go back to something that Mr. Waters was talking about before, when we were talking just about scheduling. We never look at a creative idea and just say no. We actually, and this goes back to Mrs. Kruger's question as well, we just don't say, oh, that's too hard, we can't do that. We actually start to look, and we actually will pull students' names and say, let's try this. Let's take this student. Let's take this student. Does that work? And then we actually work through a schedule. This is what we're doing behind the scenes. So your question, Bahar, is a good one, because that, while we look at because the schedules are so close, is how can we do this? Is there a way that we can match so that the days of high school are the same cohort as middle school? And I can't say yes or no today, but we're already starting to just look at those examples and sharing this information, because we don't want to just say no. We want to actually try it and see. Our job is to make this a smooth transition as much as we can. And so we are testing those types of ideas to see if we can do this. It's going to take a lot of work. Master schedule alone is tough, but actually looking at 2 schools and trying to look at schedules is something we will do. And it all starts with looking at our report of how many siblings are in high school and in middle school.
And I have to tell you that all of you must have your cape somewhere, because you're doing a great job. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your questions.
Our next question comes as a follow-up from, and thank you for doing this, putting your follow-up in a new question, because sometimes it can be hard to get back to everybody. Eva Orpelli is wondering about cohorting and the virtual and how that's working. So Mr. Allen, if you could provide some clarification. Eva, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask that question.
So just follow up from the before when you were talking about having the cohort A and B and the difficulty of the teacher being able to be in class, watching the kids in class, while at the same time having kids virtually. Does that mean that the kids who are virtually are not doing the same thing as the kids in the class? Because when I asked about cohort C, that seemed to be the problem, was that the kids in cohort C would not be doing the same thing ever as cohort A who is in class. So what about cohort B? Are they not being supervised while cohort A is in class? Because right now, when they're virtual, everybody's other than in a breakout room, basically, if you're virtual, you're being supervised in school.
So I'm going to be just gut honest with you. This is my first pandemic. And so we are learning this stuff as we go. And so that is really, really true. There is a lot that we are going to have to learn. And cohorting is something that we've never done before. We've never had to do it. And that's a real honest answer. But what I can tell you for sure is that, first of all, we are going to take a hard look at it and build out the professional development that we need to do to make it happen. But in a simple answer, yes, the kids in cohort B are going to be doing the exact same thing as cohort A. When you look at the Google Classroom, all of those assignments and all of those professional the documents like, the worksheets and literary passages and things like that, they're loaded up in the Google Classroom for the kids in class and outside of class. And
right. So if that's the case, then why can't cohort C?
No, they would. Yeah, I think that was a misunderstanding. I think that cohort C, the thing with cohort C is that not that they wouldn't be doing the same thing, but that they wouldn't be live in class for an entire week. It would be a longer amount of time before cohort C was able to actually be in the class, or cohort A or B.
They're choosing not to go back. That's the idea, that cohort C chooses not to go back live.
So
we're talking about it's February. The likelihood of, going to hybrid before the end of May, the idea of, changing it up for some of these students for just 2 months isn't really even worth it.
Yeah.
So I think it depends. I mean, it obviously depends on when we go back, but I will say, and just to be completely honest, is, I mean, anybody that has a hesitation about returning to class should have selected the ILC model, because the ILC model was a guarantee of remote learning for the entire year. So while we can't specifically say exactly what that will look like, in theory, because if kids are coming into a classroom, we want to be able to, in science class, give them a lab. We want them to have that experience. And then the cohort B having that same experience when they are in the classroom. So the work will be the same work, which will be different for the person that's at home that doesn't have access to the lab. So it is, as much as I'd like to say that there's going to be a cohort C, right now, it's not in our plans to offer a cohort C.
Thank you for that clarification. Our final question, as I can see, we are going almost on an hour and a half now, is going to come from Romy Azevedo in relation to clubs. Mr. Allen, if you could please answer this question. This will be our final question, and then Dr. Brugge will wrap up. Romy, take it away.
Oh, thank you. This is my favorite subject, all about clubs and
I
interest.
love that.
I love this subject, and found out from this amazing open house at the high school, there's 200 of them at the high school. Giving love and value to our clubs. I know that this year was, difficult because of the virtual situation, but I was hoping, if it's possible, I see that you built it into the schedule on Wednesday as a virtual opportunity. And I guess my question is not kind of like I laid the question out on Mr. Ellis, is how can't we use the opportunities to meet on campus in small groups for the clubs so that it's not a virtual experience? Could you consider that, or would you consider it like small 12 to 15?
If you're talking about for right now, I think the important thing to remember about clubs is that they have faculty sponsors at the middle school level. And so our faculty sponsors, it would be, we really, first of all, can't really have the kids back on campus because of where we are right now and the orders that we're under. But also we're not there with our faculty sponsors either as well. So I know what you're saying. But yeah, that's going to be really difficult at this point. That's not to say it can't happen in the future, but we're going to have to take it, one step at a time, just keeping an eye on the caseloads. And Dr. Breggy, is there something I'm missing there, Dr. Breggy or Rebecca? Okay.
No, unfortunately, that is where we are. I did overlook one person. Neely Owen had put something in the chat, and I apologize. I overlooked it. I tried to get to everybody. If I've missed a question, please email Mr. Allen. But this will be our final question. Go ahead, Neely.
Gosh, I wish it was a better one. Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here as a teacher, as a parent, as a coach, future coach. My question is, I have a couple classes, and I know that I'm not the only one that have less than 16, like have, that 12 to 16. Would they be coming 2 days a week then? Like my period 5, period 6, would they be coming on? Because for parents, it would be good for them to know that that's a possibility, that they might be coming like Monday, Tuesday, and Friday.
So it would be the cohort would be just the cohort. So, if we had a lower number, that's a great thing, but they may have a lower number in your class, but in other teachers' classes, it's never going to be the same number. So then we'd have somebody on campus with really no place to go. So until things begin to open up, we're going to have to be super tight about the cohorts. And as things begin to open up, we know that we'll have some opportunities to provide those types of opportunities. But as we start off, we know that we're going to be really tight with our cohorts.
Dr. Breggy, before your final words, I also want to give a shameless plug. We have a brand new club on campus that we just are launching right now, and Ms. Terranova is right here with us. She is the faculty sponsor, and it's the Animal Lovers Club. And they are going to be making toys out of socks for animals in shelters. And they have a variety of projects that they're going to be doing in support of animals. And so watch your emails, because I will be sending out an email for people that might want to sign up, students that might want to sign up for the Animal Lovers Club. And we're so excited to add another club to the roster. Thank you, Ms. Terranova.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Allen. And on behalf of our board president, Mrs. Marcus, who is also in our room, who has attended throughout the day, Ms. Wells, Dr. Stern, we thank you so much. We're so grateful. You've taken on a huge education role in your homes, and we're just so grateful that you continue to be supportive and understanding as we work through a very, very challenging process with the impacts that are never what we predicted, but we're always ready to react. And so we thank you for your patience level as we go forward. This was a really good conversation. In fact, all 3 meetings were a little bit different when it comes to the questions, which is fantastic. And thank you for opening up to us, sharing your questions with us. And as soon as the information changes, we will update you with our communications. So thank you everyone so much, and have a great day.